Welcome on into a live Cleveland Browns Report video, which was filmed during our live show every single Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to tune in next Tuesday if you missed this past live show. But we're going to talk about the latest news and rumors on this edition. And let's start by talking about a sensitive subject, Nick Chubb. The Browns cutting Nick Chubb. I'm going to give this one Bernie head. We usually our Bernie heads is a scale of believability. I do think it's a slight step above zero Bernie heads, which is fake news, but I don't think it has a very high chance at all. Now, the reason why we're talking about this is because Zach Jackson from The Athletic, he included Nick Chubb as a potential cut candidate, if you will. And here's what he said. The Browns want to keep Chubb and hope he can be an effective fourth quarter closer for them in the back half of next season. Browns GM Andrew Berry has said conversations about restructuring are coming and thought a healthy Chubb has been maybe the league's best running back. The Browns need to smartly account for every penny on their salary cap now and into the foreseeable future. Chubb probably will be back, but this is a delicate and potentially complicated situation. And my reaction to what Zach Jackson wrote is, that's spot on, especially the last part of Chubb's probably going to be back. But I don't think we should just stick our heads in the sand and act like there's no possible way Nick Chubb returns. Or doesn't return, I should say. I think Nick Chubb is a player worth betting on in terms of attacking his rehab, kicking it in the ass, and coming back as close as he possibly can to the player he was before that knee injury. But there is, as I've been calling it for over a month now, a Bermuda Triangle of death here for running backs. The age, knee injury, big contract. That's usually when teams look to completely jump ship from that player. But Nick Chubb is different. He is the heart and soul of the Cleveland Browns. He has been a huge leader and a huge part of this team ever since he was drafted almost half a decade ago at this point, over half a decade ago now. This is a spot-on take, though, from Zach Jackson about it being a delicate situation because there are some things Andrew Berry and Nick Chubb and his agent are going to have to work through. When you look at the finances behind Chubb's contract, if the Browns were to release him before June 1st, they could save nearly $12 million. That's a lot of cap savings. And if this was a running back on another team that wasn't so important to their DNA and what they've done and how instrumental Nick Chubb has been for this franchise's turnaround, they'd probably move on from him. But it's Nick Chubb. Throw the numbers out for a moment. We're talking about Nicholas Jamal Chubb. They're not going to move on from him. They're going to find a way. The only reason I think there is a tiny % chance of Nick Chubb not returning is if the Browns get bad word about how his rehab is going and there is no progress on some sort of restructuring a contract. I'm not talking restructuring push money to the end of the can. I'm talking a pay cut, which I wouldn't blame Nick Chubb if he said, I don't want to take a pay cut. I've done so much for this team. But I could also see why the Browns go, listen, we don't want to move on from you, but we can't have a near $16 million cap hit for a running back who's 28 years old coming off a major knee injury. So if the two sides are unable to work through that and the rehab's not going well, maybe that's where we see a very small chance the Browns move on from Nick Chubb. But I don't think that's going to happen. No one wants to see Chubb go, right? Andrew Berry said several times during his press conference at the end of the season that they do not want to see that carry in Pittsburgh be the last carry Nick Chubb has as a Cleveland Brown. But ultimately, this is a business, and there has to be a certain emotion element that gets put to the side. And if the Browns and Chubb can't get over that emotional element and ultimately business is business, maybe the Browns decide we're going to go a different direction. But I don't believe that's going to – I don't think it's going to get to that point. My prediction is Nick Chubb takes a pay cut. I think that is probably what's going to end up happening here because he knows he's not going to have a huge market elsewhere. I would believe he wants to stay in Cleveland. And so this is probably the best opportunity. And by pay cut, it might just mean hey, we're going to give you a bunch of guaranteed money for this season, a big signing bonus. It might not be everything you were going to get, but we're not talking a dramatic cut your pay in half type of cut. But when you look at what Nick Chubb's done over the last 4 years, like, this is why he is a player worth betting on. We're talking about 5 straight seasons of averaging over 5 yards a carry. I think people take that for granted. Because in this day and age, everyone just wants to hop on the bandwagon of, you don't need a good running back. Don't pay running backs. Don't draft him early. Nick Chubb was a second-round pick that's been worth every single dollar the Browns have put into him. When running backs are that good, they're worth an early draft pick. They are worth that type of contract. And for all the teams and people that say, like, well, look what the Chiefs have done with Isaiah Pacheco, a 7th rounder, and all these really low-paying running backs that have won Super Bowls the last 10 years. Yeah, they've also had Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady as their quarterback for most of them. Not everyone has a Patrick Mahomes or a Tom Brady. And if you don't, you got to find some other weapons, like the running back position. So I'm all for the investment in the ground game for the Browns. This is not going to be a bad bet in my eyes. It's also not a good draft to find a new running back. Like, if you plan on moving on from Nick Chubb, it better be because you've got a great replacement plan in place. You shouldn't move on from Nick Chubb and go, all right, let's start from ground zero. Let's find our next starting running back. No, that would be a very bad plan, especially when you look at the running backs entering this year's draft. Like, I don't have a good beat on who the number 1 back is. Kind of go with Blake Corum because of how productive he was at Michigan. But I really like the fella out of Notre Dame. Trey Benson out of Florida State. He didn't get a ton of usage, so he doesn't have a ton of tread on his tires. Jonathan Brooks is supposed to be the best back, but at the same time, like, he's coming off a knee injury as well. There are some flags all over this running back class, and none of them are going to go round 1. And there's even a chance none of them go round 2, believe it or not. So before we get on to the rest of today's show, I do want to get your opinion on this one. What's your confidence level in Nick Chubb returning for 2024? Ignore how he looks or when he comes back. Just, is he going to be on the Browns 2024 roster? I would put it, scale of 1 to 10, at a 9. Let's move on to our second rumor today, which is the 2024 NFL salary cap. Will it be $250 million? I'm going to give this one 2 Bernie heads. I'm kind of right in the middle. And I'm going to tell you why this is extremely important to the Cleveland Browns and why you need to know about this in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about our sponsor today, which is Game Time. If you are looking to go catch a local sporting event, a concert, a comedy show, or anything else, get started with Game Time, because what they are doing for Browns fans is giving you guys $20 off when you download the Game Time app and redeem code BROWNSCHAT. So if you want to go see a Cavs game, a Guardians game coming up soon, any concert in your area, make sure you use Game Time, because like I said, they're going to give you $20 off. I know that not everyone lives the same way I do. I like to plan in advance, but not everyone does. So if you are a last-minute type of person, Game Time is your best friend, because they're going to have deals on tickets even an hour after the event starts. So download Game Time today, and remember, use code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. So our good friend Mike Florio, he did have a pretty noteworthy scoop that I wanted to share with you guys, because he tweeted out the 2024 salary cap is coming. Some are expecting it to be in the range of $242 million to $243 million per team. At least one source said in response to that, more. Now, this snippet from Florio's article I thought was very interesting. He wrote, another source with a proven record of accuracy in these matters says it will be closer to $250 million than to $243 million. If you're like a little bit out of your comfort zone and feel like a fish out of water talking about the NFL salary cap, let me make this as simple as possible for you. The more, the better. We want the highest salary cap possible for the Cleveland Browns, because the Browns have an ownership group that is devoted to spending money. And so while a low salary cap might help some poor teams out like the Cincinnati Bengals, that way the big ballers of the NFL with rich owners don't go out and buy all the players. The Browns, They've got an ownership committed to spending cash, right? Guaranteed money. And so a higher salary cap is great for them. And then you tack on the fact that the Browns are currently $19.6 million over the expected salary cap. We still don't know for a fact what the salary cap is going to be for 2024, but it's expected to be $242 million. And that's where we get this 19.6 from. It's 19.6 million over 242. However, if the salary cap were to go up to $250 million, you could subtract $8 million from this projected salary cap, and all of a sudden the Browns are more like $11 to $12 million over the salary cap, which means they are that much closer to getting below the salary cap, and they are basically getting $8 million to spend on another starter if they really wanted to. Now, in a previous video of mine, and you can go check it out, I came out with 5 cap-saving moves. Trim the fat. There's some guys that you could just move on from, like Jordan Akins, for example, and save a little chunk of change. But you can restructure Deshaun Watson's contract for $33 million. You can extend Amari Cooper, get a new contract for Nick Chubb, restructure Denzel Ward's contract. And if you do all that stuff, we're talking $60 million in cap space if the salary cap is $250 million. You want Mike Evans? And Mike Evans wants $30 million a season. $60 million, take half of it out, you still have $30 million to spend. So the more, the better. Hope and pray that the salary cap is closer to $250 million, because every single $1 million it goes up by, that is a little bit less the Browns are over the projected salary cap, and it's more money they can spend in free agency. Now, when we look at the history of the NFL salary cap, you can see that it's got a pretty routine increment of increase, like 6%, 5%. And then COVID happens, and then they make up for COVID by doubling it by 14%, and then back to about 8% raise here. And so that's where we get to tack on an extra 7 to 8%, and you're right around $242 million. So why would they go from the usual increase of 7 to 8% to would be about a 10, 11% increase? The NFL made a shit ton of money this past season from their deals with Amazon, Peacock, Taylor Swift, for crying out loud. Like, they made a lot of money. So they could look to spend, put the salary cap at $250 million. Let's move on to our third and final story today, which is, are the Browns trading Amari Cooper? I saved the worst for last. Fake news. People are always going to get so mad at me in the comment section. I am in complete agreement with you. The Browns should not trade away Amari Cooper. So why are we talking about this? Because I came across a Bleacher Report article that had one dream trade scenario for all 32 teams. And they happened to have Amari Cooper going to the New England Patriots on this. So I figured, let's just kind of nip this in the bud right now and talk about the chance the Browns trade Amari Cooper, which is not even one burn yet. It's fake news. Amari Cooper, by the way, there is some truth to the salary cap implications. I mean, he's got a cap hit of $23.7 million for 2024. If they were to move on from him, dead cap hit of $11.3 million and a cap savings of $12.4 million. So the Browns could save $12.4 million, which is a good chunk of change. But you don't trade away good players when you are an 11-win team coming off a postseason berth. You are looking to maximize your window. And you do that by holding on to players like Amari Cooper, who you could say are coming off the best years of their NFL career, right? Amari Cooper in 2022 to 2023 with the Cleveland Browns versus what he did in 2020 and 2021 with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, more targets, but fewer receptions and far more yards, much better average, and one more touchdown. I mean, you can make a real argument that Amari Cooper, the best 2 years of his NFL career have been the last 2 years. And he had a great career with the Raiders and with the Cowboys before coming to Cleveland. So I've got no fear that Amari Cooper is going to fall off a cliff and have a major regression type of year, and the Browns are going to get out early before that big drop-off happens. I think there is a 0% chance Cooper's traded. Not 1%, not even like Nick Chubb, where there's a 2 to 3% chance the Browns ultimately move on from him for one reason or another. No, there is a 0% chance Amari Cooper is traded, and if he's traded, I'm doing a polar plunge in Lake Erie. Now, as for the Browns having to make some moves to get below the salary cap, they can do that without moving on from Amari Cooper. You restructure Deshaun Watson's contract, You free up over $30 million in cap space, and boom, you are below the salary cap just like that. You can also extend Amari Cooper because I think he is someone that's not showing any signs of slowing down. New contract for Nick Chubb. You can restructure Denzel Ward's contract. Restructure not as simple and as easy as people make it out to be. If you kick the can down the road and it kind of like balloons up at the end of their contract and you want to move on from that player at the end of their contract, you are stuck with a huge dead cap hit, which is basically money devoted to the salary cap for a player not on your team. But no, the Browns are not going to trade Amari Cooper. Now, it did get me thinking. Recent Browns wide receivers. Let's play a fun game here. Start, bench, cut. Amari Cooper, Josh Gordon, Jarvis Landry. You got to start one, you got to bench one, you got to cut one. Let me know down below in the comment section. I'm going to go start Amari Cooper. I want to go, my heart tells me Juice because he was so much more impactful than Josh Gordon, but like Josh Gordon will always have that 2013 season. I'm going to go start Amari Cooper, bench Jarvis Landry, cut Josh Gordon, but I could easily flip-flop these two. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show, but let's wrap up by picking a card as we have Trizzy Trace in the studio today. Mr. Gerard, which card do you want to pick?
You know, I'm really liking the 4 of Hearts today.
4 of Hearts? I'm going to go for Amari Cooper, staying in Cleveland. No, for Nick Chubb, 2 + 4 is 6, 6 of diamonds.
I love it. I love it.
5 of spades. 5 of spades. All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Always appreciate people taking time out of their day to come hang out with us. We will sign off, and we will catch up with you later.